I first learned my reading and writing at the Ragan where I went to school. It was there I first took to me fighting with the schoolmaster Mickey O'Toole. Me and he had many's a scrimmage, but devil the lesson I wrote. If you're in for a row or a ruction, you just tread on the tail of me coat. Oh, tread on the tail of me coat. Aha, tread on the tail of me coat. If you're in for a row or a ruction, you just tread on the tail of me coat. One box-trotter, Mickey O'Malley, tried to steal my best girl away. He had money, but I hadn't any, so a challenge I sent the next day. Well, we met the next morn at Kildaley, and the Shannon we crossed in a boat, and I lathered him with my shillelagh, for he tread on the tail of me coat. Oh, tread on the tail of me coat. Aha, tread on the tail of me coat. If you're in for a row or a ruction, you just tread on the tail of me coat. Oh, be name it spread over the nation, and sure gangs all flocked to see me, and they cried without hesitation, "You're a fighting man, Mickey McGee." Well, I fought in the Linnigan fashion, and I drove me opponents afloat, when I lathered them with my shillelagh, for they tread on the tail of me coat. Oh, tread on the tail of me coat. Aha, tread on the tail of me coat. If you're in for a row or a ruction, you just tread on the tail of me coat. Oh, tread on the tail of me coat. Aha, tread on the tail of me coat. If you're in for a row or a ruction, you just tread on the tail of me coat. Aha.